Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. It is 10:40, and as you know, if you've been with us before, we like to start right on time. If you were with us this morning, you're going to have to hear this beginning again. If you're just logging in and joining us, welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I'm Diane Michael with Beyond the Boardroom, and I'm so happy to be here. It is cold where I am. I'm in Daytona Beach, and it's chilly this morning, but I love this season. So wherever you're coming in from, I hope you're staying warm, and we appreciate you being here with us. I'm here with my CAM partner, Lindsay Lombardi. We'll be hosting this morning's education program. Our goal is to educate board members and CAMs in an easy way at your desk, on your mobile, and while you're traveling. We know how important education and CE credits are, and that's exactly why we decided to launch our Beyond the Boardroom program over a year ago. We started on the fourth Wednesday of each month and have already grown to now offer education and CE credits on the second and fourth Wednesdays. So please mark your calendars for the next webinar Wednesday happening on December 10th. We only had one webinar Wednesday, which is today in November, and we only have one next month because of the holidays. They are here, they are upon us. It's exciting. Keep watching the emails and be sure to save us as safe senders so you don't miss important education updates. I send a newsletter at least once a week about the forthcoming continuing education credits. So if you're not getting it once a month, be sure to check your spam and add me to your safe sender list so that you don't miss any important updates. And we ask that you let your fellow board members know and your fellow CAMs know about our program. It's such great information from the industry professionals, and we thank you for helping us share our message and the word of education. So will you let us know where you're coming in from today? If you already did that, do it again because John hasn't been able to see the chat. Let us know if you're a board member or you're a CAM and what city or county you're coming in from. I think it's fun to do that, and I appreciate you doing that. We have two more continuing education credits for you today and some other great content. I posted the agenda above all of you saying where you're coming from. I'll post it again after everyone says where they're coming from so you can see in the chat the rest of the day. While that's all happening, Lindsay, will you go over the continuing education credit process?
I will. So all of you that have attended the first one, sorry, you're getting a repeat. We now are doing everything through a submission form that you will get a link at the end of the course and use that link for this course and any course that you attend with us to submit your information to get credit for the course that you attend. You will have to do it for every single course that you attend. So if you attend 3 courses today, you need to submit 3 separate times. So on that form, you'll click the link, you'll scroll down to the bottom. It'll ask for your first name, last name, and if your CAM license includes your middle name, you will put your middle initial, not your full name, just your middle initial. If you don't and it requires you to put something there, just put a little dash mark. That's fine. For your CAM license, it will only allow you to put in the numbers. Before, some of you were putting in the CAM before it. That rejects your submission for the CE credit. So now we have it set up to where you cannot put any letters in that box. You can only put numbers, so just the numbers. And then we will give you the name of the course that you will need to put there because that lets us know where, which course you took. And then during the course, at some point, we will give a code word, and that code word will need to be entered as well. And the reason we do this is the DBPR is really strict. We have to make sure that you attended the course. Obviously, we're not in person. We're on Zoom. So I don't know if you are turning on your computer and leaving for the day and coming back. So I need to make sure that you stayed during the course in order for our lovely partner, John, to keep his credentials to be a provider for the DBPR education. So we're not trying to be a pain. It's just we're going to have to give the code word. We'll give it a few times. So just make a note of it and then make sure when you submit the course that you put that code word in and you will be all set and good to go. We will make sure you get the code word if you're listening. Whether you're looking, if you're listening, you'll hear it, you'll get it. We'll repeat it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lindsay. I love it. I'm putting the agenda in again as I introduce John here for you. Also, real quick, for those of you that have been with us before, we usually take a break for lunch. We sent surveys out to CAMs and board members. Thank you for those that responded. I'll send it out again today as well. The thought process was to push forward because you can eat at your desk, and some people don't even take lunch. So we're just pushing forward and through lunch today. So please note that on your agenda that's in the chat. Okay, John, it's my honor to introduce today's speaker, someone who truly embodies experience, integrity, and leadership in the pool construction industry. John Oakes is the proud owner and partner of the award-winning pool construction company Oakwell's Aquatics, located in Jacksonville. Well, that's where their headquarters is. They've recently expanded into franchises, so certainly contact John if you know someone interested. John oversees commercial pool field operations, where he serves as a qualifier, consultant, and relationship manager. John's career is backed by more than 30 years in construction and business leadership. From building a thriving retail furniture company in the 90s to leading large-scale projects like the $1 million DOT contract on the Highway 528 Beachline expansion. On top of that, he is a certified commercial and residential swimming pool contractor, a certified building contractor, a licensed real estate agent, and a certified CE provider for the swimming pool industry. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to a trusted leader, experience builder, and someone who has dedicated his career to raising the standards of the pool industry. Mr. John Oakes, welcome.
Thank you, Diane. Good morning, everyone.
And John, sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to do the slides for you. So just if you'll say next slide when you're ready, I'll happily go to the next one.
So we've discovered that the commercial swimming pool portion of the properties that CAMs manage seem to be mysterious in a lot of cases and problematic in some cases as well. And so we're hoping to expand your knowledge and through this education seminar to understand what you're having to deal with and to help you guide your board to make better decisions on managing and if renovating comes up, which it eventually will, at your commercial swimming pools. Dan, you can move to the next slide, please. Diane. Okay.
Lindsay, she'll work.
Sorry, I'm trying. It's not. Oh, there it goes. Sorry, it wasn't switching.
Okay. There's a big misconception out there about swimming pools, and that is that a swimming pool is a swimming pool. And that's not necessarily true. The DBPR and the building departments both understand that a commercial swimming pool is a very different animal than a residential swimming pool. And so we start with the definition of the two. A residential swimming pool is a swimming pool that might be in your backyard that is intended for the use of one household. As soon as a swimming pool is intended to be used by more than one living unit or more than one household, it becomes a commercial swimming pool. And that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. When we're building a residential swimming pool, we typically have to deal with an HOA and the local building department. When we build a commercial swimming pool, we start with the Department of Health. And then we also have to get a permit from the Department of Health. They approve our plans. And then we also have to get a permit from the local municipal building department. It may be the city building department, or it may be the county building department. And where the project becomes very different is when the health department gets involved. There's very specific more stringent guidelines and requirements that the health department puts into the mix on building and maintaining commercial swimming pools. And what I'd like to do is as we move through these slides, point out some of the differences, and just understand that if you're a CAM and you're managing a condominium association or a neighborhood that has an amenity center and there's a swimming pool, it's a commercial swimming pool, and you're answering to the Department of Health throughout the year. And also, if you're doing any kind of major renovations, the local building departments get in on the act too. So it requires us to get 2 permits to do a renovation. The standards for the commercial swimming pool are very different. Can we go to the next slide, please? Still struggling? There we go. I'm a little bit ahead of the slides, sorry. The health department requires every commercial swimming pool to be managed by a certified pool operator. This certification is something that's offered through the DBPR, and a lot of times the maintenance person on a property will get the CPO certification and can manage the swimming pool. If it's a pool service company that you're using, someone in that company is certainly a certified pool operator. More likely, they have a Tier 1 license, which allows them to service swimming pools. Next slide, please. So this is a photograph of a competition pool, and you'll notice, you about have to zoom in, but this is a gutter pool. And what we mean by that is that when you walk from the deck, if you're going to step into the swimming pool, there's a little 12-inch wide lip gutter that has drains in it around the perimeter of the swimming pool. According to health department and building department standards, any swimming pool that's 1,000 square feet of water surface area or greater is required to be a gutter pool. A competition pool has special exemptions. You don't have to follow all of the rules on for a commercial swimming pool if it's a special use or competition pool. If we get to the point where someone's dealing with that, we can certainly, you can contact me on the side, and we can go over any code changes that might be necessary. But typically, a CAM is not managing or overseeing a competition pool. Go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So this is a better view of a gutter pool with a sun shelf, which is, I think it was 3 years ago, we were allowed to start putting sun shelves in commercial pools. But you'll notice the zero entry grate and the area of the swimming pool that's wet, of the swimming pool deck that's wet beyond that grate is considered the wet deck. The health department and the building department tell us that the wet deck is 4 feet of the first 4 feet of deck from the water's edge back away from the swimming pool. And when we're building a pool, or if you're overseeing a renovation of an existing pool, if you do anything with the deck, the slope on that deck, on the wet deck, which is the first 4 feet, is something that's measured with a SMART level by the health department inspector, and you are allowed to have a 2 to 4% slope away from the pool there. This particular picture shows that area that's wet is not considered the wet deck. That's the zero entry. The wet deck on this photograph would begin where the deck's not wet and 4 feet back. So where you can see the different colors in the pavers there, where they're wet and dry at the top of the top edge of the pool. To the left of that, where it's wet, it's sloping into the pool. To the right of that, which is the wet deck, is sloping away from the pool. That's something that's monitored and measured. And if you get it wrong during your renovation, it's really invasive to correct. Let's go to the next. There we go. So there's a lot of pools in Florida that have been here for decades. And the old school method of building a commercial pool was to build this curb. This is still a gutter pool. As you can see, there's a 12-inch wide gutter that's underneath the water. And then there's the curb, and then behind the curb is where the wet deck starts on this one. If you're overseeing a renovation of a commercial swimming pool, there's quite a few items that the health department is going to inspect before they let you reopen that swimming pool. One of them is this gutter that I'm speaking of has a dimension requirement. It must be at least 12 inches wide. And there's waterline tile, as you're looking at this photograph, on the right side of that gutter, which would be the swimming pool side of the gutter. that waterline tile is typically what we call a mud cap tile. Some people call it bullnose, but the manufacturers call it a mud cap tile. And there was a code change about 6 or 7 years ago that requires all of that tile to be non-skid now. And when you're renovating a swimming pool, you need to be sure that your contractor is aware and installs non-skid tile there. Another requirement that you'll find that would be changed during a renovation is the slope in that gutter. The tile line, that water line tile that I just mentioned, defines the depth of the water in the pool. The water is supposed to be at a level that just slips over that tile and falls back into the gutter. If you look at pools that were built in the 90s and have not been renovated yet and before, you'll find that that gutter's flat. The health department doesn't accept that anymore. It has to have 2 inches of fall in that gutter from the water line back to the drain. So the way to check that is to lower the water, put the water in the pool at the level that it should be, which is where it's just coming over the water line tile, and then measure the back of the gutter and see if you have 2 inches of water in it. You should have. If you don't, the health department's probably going to note that for you and tell you to repair it. This picture also shows a mud cap tile on the back of the curb. Until last year, that did not have to be non-skid. Now, any tile that can be used as a step or be partially stepped on has to be non-skid. So if we were renovating the pool in this photograph right now, the 2x6 tile on the back side of the curb, and you can't really see it in this picture, but there's also a 2x6 tile on the pool side of the curb, and the 6x6 tile that's at the water line, all would be required to be non-skid today. One of the interesting things that the health department does is they'll grandfather you in and ignore items that don't meet today's code until you refinish the swimming pool. The trigger that causes you to be required to bring everything on the swimming pool up to today's code is when you refinish the swimming pool. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a swimming pool that is less than 1,000 square feet. So it's a skimmer pool. This one happens to be a residential pool, but it's a photograph that we had of a skimmer pool. If this was in fact a commercial skimmer pool, you can see up in the top right-hand corner of the swimming pool, there's one skimmer. This pool would be required to have 3 skimmers based on its size if it were a commercial swimming pool. Next slide, please. So circulation and collection systems. One of the big requirements of all commercial swimming pools is that they cannot have what's called direct suction out of the swimming basin. What that means is that the pumps, no matter how large or small, cannot draw water directly out of the swimming pool where people swim. So what we have to do is the gutters, if it's a gutter pool, the drains in the gutter around the perimeter of the pool, or if it's a skimmer pool, the skimmer's piping all has to go back to a collection tank someplace over near the equipment area. The main drains also must go to that collection tank so that all of the water that's leaving the swimming pool is leaving with only the force of gravity pushing it into the collection tank. So the way the system works is the collection tank or the vac pack, which typically includes a collection tank, must be set at an elevation that allows the collection tank in the equipment area to have water at the same elevation as the water level in the swimming pool. So we have what's called a leveling line, which is just an open pipe that comes through the wall of the swimming pool and goes through the wall of the collection tank. So when the pumps are not running and everything is still, those 2 water levels will reach equilibrium, which means they'll both be at the same elevation, the same height. So setting a new collection tank during a renovation is a critical step. If the collection tank is set too low, the water, when the pump turns off, the water overflows the collection tank and you'll think you have a leak in the swimming pool. So the way the system works is that through gravity, as I discussed already, through gravity, the water in the swimming pool drains into the collection tank via the main drain piping and either the skimmer piping or the scum gutter piping. The pumps draw water through filter grids, if it's a DE system, that are down in the collection tank, which lowers the level of the water in the tank and causes the water in the swimming pool to flow through the pipes via gravity to try to refill that tank. The whole reason for this strategy is to eliminate the risk of swimmers being entrapped in the main drain. Typically, that wouldn't be a problem in the gutters, but the main idea is the main drain. So if something like a body or a person tries to block that main drain cover, the only force that will be drawing down against that body down against the main drain cover is just gravity, which is easy to overcome. In pools that are not commercial pools or pools that don't follow today's health code, the entrapment issue is that the swimming pool pump, if it's drawing directly out of the swimming pool basin, can suck somebody up to it, and during that entrapment, they might drown. And all of these rules are because that has happened in the past. I've never heard of anyone drowning due to entrapment in a gravity type circulation system. Next slide, please. So sanitation methods and automation. The health department, one of the things that they monitor very closely is your water chemistry record. There should be a binder in your equipment area that your CPO, certified pool operator, maintains the water chemistry record. This is important for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because the health department requires it and will monitor that. Excuse me. The second reason would be that when you put a new interior finish in a swimming pool, the warranty from the interior finish manufacturer and the interior finish installer has fine print that says that this warranty is contingent upon maintaining proper chemical balances from the time this pool finish is installed until you've had a problem. And the warranty on that interior finish is almost a sales tool, because if you don't keep that water chemistry log when you do have a problem, the warranty claim will be denied because we can't prove that the water chemistry has been kept correct in the correct balances. One of the things that kills interior finishes most often and quickest is bad water chemistry. If the pH in the swimming pool is too high, you'll have scale form on the finish, which is not a warranty issue. If the pH is kept too low, it will begin to dissolve the Portland cement that is what holds the finish together in the swimming pool. So the prescribed pH level is 7.2 to 7.6. And that's something that would be reviewed very closely if there was ever any kind of a problem with the interior finish of your swimming pool. But so the way that we introduce chemicals into the swimming pool, there are several different options. The first one is manual dosing. It's the least accurate. You're depending upon your CPO to come in the morning and test the water chemistry and see where his values are, and then to add the appropriate chemicals in the appropriate amount of acid or chlorine to bring it into the required parameters. One of the problems with this is that the pool cannot be opened for 3 hours after it's been manually dosed. So if your pool is supposed to open at 8 and your CPO is manually dosing the chemicals, he needs to be there 3 hours before that, which is 5 a.m. That probably isn't going to happen with any pool service guys I've ever met. The second option is to use Stenner pumps, or there's several different brands. Stenner's the one that we like the best, but that's a dosing pump, and it's a little pump that injects acid. There's an acid pump and a chlorine pump, and they are adjustable, and they introduce the chemicals through injection ports in the plumbing in the equipment area into the return line going back to the swimming pool. The standard pumps, once again, this can be done almost manually with the exception of the application of the chemicals. Your CPO operator can come in and test the water, and if he sees that the pH is or that the chlorine is too low, there's an adjustment on the standard pump that he can turn it up and it'll dose a little bit more heavily. It's still a manual operation, and you're dependent upon the CPO to accurately test the water and adjust the dosing. The method that's sort of state of the arts that we certainly recommend and prefer is an ORP controller. And there's quite a few different brands out there. The one that we prefer and most often install is a Hayward brand, and they have several different models, but we call it a CAT 2000 or a CAT 4000. Those are the ones that we most often use. A CAT 2000, you balance the water, and then you enter the parameters that you want the water to be maintained in. And as long as the pumps are running, the water is a little bit of water is being diverted into a test bowl that has test probes in it. And so the ORP controller is constantly sensing the water, testing the water, and it will automatically adjust the flow of the Stenner pumps, which are plugged into the ORP controller instead of into an outlet, to adjust the water chemistry to the parameters that you've programmed in. The latest and greatest is the CAT 4000. It's a little bit more expensive. Both of these can be added as additions or additional equipment if you don't have that, to eliminate the manual dosing when you do a renovation or at any time, really. But the CAT 4000 is a bit of an upgrade because it programs more specific or more precisely, number one. And number two, it has a Wi-Fi antenna. And if you are within range of a Wi-Fi connection that it can connect to, it will report your water chemistry to anybody that's on the app. So you could have a CAM, you could have your CPO, you could have one of your HOA board members, anybody that wants to have that information reported to them, and you can all receive it through their phone or through a tablet or computer. The interesting thing is that you can also set the parameters and alarms so that if your swimming pool water chemistry, let's say we get a whole bunch of rain and that changes the balance of the water in the pool, you'll get a notification on your phone that the water chemistry on the swimming pool at the condo is out of the required parameters. That's pretty handy information to have. Next slide, please. Safety requirements. Nearly all of the Department of Health codes requirements are concerning safety, different types of safety. Water chemistry is a huge one. While I was on water chemistry, let me back up for just a moment. We get quite a few inquiries about people wanting to add a salt chlorination system to their commercial swimming pool. The salt chlorination system is a fantastic system. I think they've been available for about 15 years and effective for about 10 years. The drawback of adding a salt chlorination system to your commercial swimming pool is it cannot be your only sanitation system. You have to still have a chlorine and acid backup system per health department requirements. But for those of you that may not know, a salt system works like this. We add enough salt, just regular, it's sodium chloride, same thing that you put on, on your vegetables when you're going to eat dinner. But we add enough salt to the swimming pool to raise the salinity to between 3,000 and 4,000 parts per million. To give you an idea, that's about the same salinity as saline solution if you've ever worn contacts. It's not very salty at all. To compare it to, say, the water in the Atlantic Ocean here along the coast of Florida, that's typically 40,000 parts per million. So it's less than about 1/10 of the salinity of the salt water in the ocean. But the way this system works is we put the salt in the water. Table salt is a molecule, sodium chloride. It has sodium atoms and chlorine atoms that are combined to make sodium chloride. There's a component that's built into the return lines of the swimming pool, the return lines where the water goes through. It's called a salt cell. In a commercial pool, there would be multiple cells. But as the pump runs, the water flows through these cells, and inside of the cells are metal plates, and the plates are negatively and positively charged, alternatively negative, positive, sort of like an acid-lead battery is. And as that's energized with 24 volts of electrical current, which is low voltage, there's no risk of electrocution. The electronic field breaks the sodium chloride molecule into two ions, which are sodium and chlorine. Chlorine gas was used in World War I to kill people with. It's extremely poisonous, and it kills everything around it. So the way this works is the salt in the water is dissolved in the water, comes into the electronic field of the salt system. The low voltage electronic field breaks that into sodium and chlorine. The chlorine kills everything in the water in that vicinity, which is inside the salt cell. As that water leaves the salt cell, it leaves that electronic field, and the sodium and chlorine atoms or ions recombine to form salt again. So we're not even using the salt up. We're just changing it to sodium and chlorine for a little bit, and then it changes back into salt. The beauty of it is when you swim in water that's chlorinated with chlorine, typical Stenner pump dosed chlorine, you're swimming in water that's got just enough chlorine in it to kill everything except you. When you're swimming in water that's been sanitized with the salt system, there's just a little tiny bit of residual chlorine. It's barely detectable in the water that you're swimming in, but all of that water in the swimming pool within the last 4 hours has been exposed to chlorine gas, and there's nothing left alive in it. The drawback of the salt system is, number one, like I said, you still have to have the backup system of acid and chlorine. Number two, the salt cells are a wear part. Depending on the size of the pool and the way the pumps run, but every so often, usually about 2 years, you have to replace those cells. They wear out like a battery does, and they're not inexpensive. The other requirement is that those cells be cleaned at least once a quarter, and your service person would need to be able to take the salt cell out. It's usually just screw on unions and soak it in an acid water solution for 15 minutes and then put it back on. If they're not doing that, it'll eventually ruin the cell. So we have manual dosing, we have manual pump dosing, we have ORP controller dosing, and we have a salt system that can be the primary system, but it would need to have a backup system. Those are the ones that we see the most of. Next slide, please. So I've already mentioned that refinishing the swimming pool is what triggers anything that's been grandfathered in to be brought up to code. And if you are managing a property and it's time to refinish a swimming pool, it's very important that your board or whoever's making the decision on who to hire, understands that that swimming pool is going to be closed to do the work and it's not going to be reopened. The health department was going to come out and do an inspection before you can reopen, and they're going to check everything that needs to be brought up to code. I've mentioned a few of the items already as far as the non-skid tile and the slope in the gutter. There's also a flow rate that your operating permit prescribes. The Department of Health issues that operating permit, and it tells us what the volume of the pool is, what the flow rate is, what the turnover rate is, how many swimmers are allowed to swim in the swimming pool, and that's based on the number of units that the swimming pool serves. A little side story: there's an apartment complex here in Jacksonville that has 458 units, living units. It's a huge place, been there for a long time. They had 4 swimming pools. Some out-of-state buyers bought the property and were constantly spending money on these old swimming pools, putting Band-Aids on it, as opposed to going through and just doing a full-blown renovation and fixing everything. They got frustrated with that, went to the building department, pulled a permit to demolish 2 of the swimming pools, made them back into yard space and landscaped it. Then the health department came in and closed their other 2 pools. And the reason that the health department was able to do that is because there's a prescription on how many square feet of surface area and how many square feet of water surface area you have to have for each living unit. And by removing their 2 swimming pools, they don't meet that criteria anymore. And because they're not compliant, the health department gave them 2 choices. One is they could close their other 2 swimming pools. And the other choice would be to put a lifeguard at each of the other swimming pools to be sure that the occupancy of the swimming pool is not exceeded. They reached out to us to see if we could help them through this. And I was working with the health department, the local health department, and the only option we have is to build them an additional swimming pool. We don't have to build 2 more, but we do have to replace one of the swimming pools that they paid to have taken out. So that's something to keep in mind. But back to some of the requirements that you would want to pay attention to if you're having a pool renovated. One of them is the ladders to get in and out of the swimming pool need to be a cross brace ladder. I think if you could move to the next slide, maybe we've already passed it. So this is an example of a ladder that is not cross braced, and it does not meet current code. The cross brace ladder, which I'll show you a picture of in just a minute, has a brace coming from just above that first rung back across the gutter to the back leg of the ladder. The reason that was added to the health department requirements is that little boys are ambitious little guys, and in one case, there was somebody thought of a game, and they would grab the bottom of the ladder, put their feet on the wall, and stretch that ladder out and let their buddy try to swim behind it. That was fun until it got boring. And so the next step was to pull it out and get your buddy to swim behind it, and then let go of the ladder, and it pins him against the wall. And unfortunately, that created a drowning. And now all of the ladders that the ladders to be approved by the health department installed in a commercial pool have to have this cross brace feature. We already talked about the wet deck needing to have 2 to 4 foot slope. Next slide, please. Here we go. So in the left picture and the right picture, there's photographs of cross braced ladders. So you can see how that additional bracing has prevented the ability to stretch that ladder out. Another requirement that the health department will have is that that first rung on the ladder has to be no more than 6 inches and less than 4 inches off of the wall. So the placement of that ladder is critical when you're redoing your deck and reinstalling the ladder. Your pool contractor should be aware of that. That's something that is going to be measured before they open you up. On the right-hand picture, I don't know if that's in the, oh, it's my cursor. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you see the marker tiles on the top of the gutter and on the face of the gutter. These are required anywhere where there's a depth change, a significant depth change. And as the health department measures the depth of the pool, they do give us some leniency there that includes, so the way the code reads is they must be, the markers must be within 3 inches, plus or minus 3 inches of the actual depth of the pool, 3 feet from the water's edge into the pool. The horizontally placed marker tiles, like the 8 feet 3 inches that you see in the left picture, that's horizontally placed tile. That has to be non-skid. The numbers have to be non-skid. They have to be contrasting background to number, and the numbers have to be 4 inches tall. So there's very specific requirements for marker tiles. Let's see, what else do we see in this picture? Go ahead to the next screen, please, Diane. So step tile, the steps going into this pool, that 2-inch tile edge is required on the nose of each step. And it does, in fact, also have to be non-skid tile. One of the other things that the health department is going to measure very precisely for you, and it's a very complicated repair if your pool contractor doesn't get it right, and that's the riser height and tread width of the step. I'm sorry. The riser height from between steps, from each step, has to be within 3/8 of an inch, all the way down the set of steps. The maximum riser height is 10 inches for a swimming pool and 12 inches for a spa. The minimum tread width is 12 inches for a swimming pool and 10 inches for a spa. The reason they've changed that on the spa is because building a set of steps down into a 3-foot deep spa, if it's only a 10-foot diameter spa, the steps will take up almost all of the floor they're trying to allow for more floor space. So I guess it's, well, that'll be sarcastic. I'll skip it. The reason we have this handrail shown in here is that there's a dimension on the handrail that has to be met. The maximum height of a handrail is 42 inches, and the minimum height of the handrail above the deck is 28 inches. The handrail must die into the bottom step, be fastened into the bottom step of the pool if it goes into the pool. And one of the things that we run into quite often is that a handrail is loose and wobbly. For your information, and maybe you can have your maintenance guy do this if you have this problem, there's the little stand or the handrail is on the deck. There's a little ring. It's called an escutcheon. If you lift that escutcheon up, it's just sitting there. If you lift that escutcheon up, there's a bronze anchor in most cases that holds the handrail that's underneath that escutcheon. The escutcheon is there to hide that bronze anchor. And there's a 1/2-inch bolt, hex head bolt, that you should be able to see. Sometimes you have to scratch some of the sand or move the paver back a little bit to see that. And it's just a swedge anchor. So when you tighten up that bolt, it tightens up the handrail inside of the anchor, and the anchor is typically set in the concrete. So that's an easy fix for a maintenance guy, but it's something that the health department will call you out on. Next slide, please. No dive tile. So the no dive marker tile must be able to be visible from the deck, and you got to have one every 25 feet where the water is, I believe, less than 8 feet deep. So you'll see that the no dive tile is typically just placed with each one of the marker tile sets around the perimeter of the pool. I see a lot of pools that have no dive tiles installed vertically, either on the back of the gutter or the back of the curb. That's not required. I don't know why tile guys have done that over the years. That's an expensive little tile. They're $10 a piece, plus at least $10 to install it. So we just put those on the on the horizontal surfaces every 25 feet around the area of the pool that is less than 8 feet deep. Can I have the next slide, please? We're looking at this because this is a perfect example of a gutter that meets code. It is at least 12 inches wide from the back of the gutter to the deep water in the pool. You can't really see it in this picture, but it's got 2 inches of slope in it. One of the maintenance issues that we see on a regular basis is these drain grates that are just held into plastic with 2 little stainless screws are either missing or broken. That's problematic because stuff that gets in the swimming pool, leaves and what have you, that are larger than the openings in this grate are stopped by the grate, should be cleaned out by the swimming pool operator. But if those grates are broken, or if they're missing, or if they're not fastened properly, it will allow larger debris to get into the pipes. And there's no good way of retrieving that without opening up your deck and excavating behind it and cutting the pipe. In some cases, you might be able to force it on through, but probably not. The elbows in the pool plumbing are hard 90s. They're not sweeps, and getting something like a rubber ball or a bathing suit to push through there is going to be tough. So maintaining those little grates is something that's simple to do, but often overlooked. Next slide, please. Main drain covers. You probably already know this, but the health department monitors main drain covers. They have to be Virginia Graham-Baker Act compliant, and they have a lifespan on them. The lifespan is actually predicted by the manufacturer of the grade. It'll tell you that this has a 7-year life, and it'll have a production date on it. So every 7 years, you've got to change these grates out. And the health department has a special form. I forget what the number on the form is. I think it's a 8152, but I could be wrong on that form, that when we change the grate or when we refinish the swimming pool, we have to fill out that form with the manufacturer, the size, and the serial number of that grate so that they can monitor it. And then the health department knows when your grates are more than 7 years old, and they'll require you to have them changed. These are the drains that are in the bottom of the pool, and they typically come in a lot of different sizes. The smallest ones I've seen are 9 by 9 inches, and we've seen them as big as 36 by 36, which would be 4 grates, 4 18 by 18s installed together. But that grate is supposed to be unblockable. And if you look at the grate, you can't really see it from this perspective, but it's domed, and the little wings in there are at different elevations. All of that is to help prevent entrapment. Next slide, please. Black algae. So black algae is a very common problem in Florida swimming pools. We have black algae everywhere, and we have to maintain our swimming pool chemical balance and finishes to a level that black algae doesn't want to grow there. Black algae just looks like little black blobs, typically in areas of the swimming pool, on the surface of the swimming pool, typically in areas that don't get sufficient circulation. The two things that prevent black algae from growing in your pool are good water chemistry and brushing the pool surface with a pool brush. Black algae, as I mentioned earlier, is all over in Florida. If you go in the woods, in the swampy woods, you'll see it growing on leaves of trees. It's just part of Florida, and it reproduces by spores. So the spores get into your swimming pool, if they land on a ledge or a part of your finish, typically down, you'll see it down in the cove where the wall begins to turn into floor. And those spores are left there in an environment that's not caustic enough to kill them. They'll grow and turn into black algae. Once it gets started, it's really difficult to eliminate. So the idea is to keep the water chemistry balanced as prescribed by the health department, but also be sure that your CPO is brushing the swimming pool surface. They should be doing that at least once a week, if not more, depending upon the usage that your swimming pool gets and the amount of landscaping that's around it. So the solution for black algae is that you can raise the pH in the pool for a period of time, which will help. A second issue is, or method is to get a diver in there or a swimmer in there with a wire brush and brush the black algae off. And then you can actually rub it with a chlorine tablet, and it won't completely eliminate it, but it'll certainly handicap it, and you can get back on top of it, on top of the black algae before it really becomes a problem. One of the reasons that we end up refinishing a lot of swimming pools is that the black algae has gotten started and nobody's really done anything about it, and it sort of takes over. And once it gets to where you have a significant amount of black algae in the swimming pool, the only thing we can do to get rid of it is to drain the pool and acid wash it. And in some cases that works, but the only absolute way to do it is to refinish that swimming pool. So that's something that you should really pay attention to, and be sure that your certified pool operator is brushing the pool and watching the water chemistry. And as soon as you see any black algae, you need to jump right on it to get it under control. So an emergency shutoff, knowledge of this is pretty critical. We do a lot of things to prevent the possibility of entrapment in a commercial swimming pool, but there should be, on a spa, there's an emergency shutoff button that has to be posted on a ballard right there on the deck. On the swimming pool, you would have to get into the equipment area, and there's a power panel, just like a breaker panel, like is in a house or in a garage, and it should be labeled pool circulation pump. And to turn that pump off as an emergency measure, you flip that breaker. One other little side story is that there's a pool here in Florida that we got called out to work on. That had an expansion joint that was leaking, and we were going to repair the expansion joint. So we drained the pool down below the expansion joint and began removing the sealant to repair that expansion joint, and discovered that the interior finish was just crumbling. And then we looked at the floor returns, which are the returns where the water comes back from the pool pump and it comes into the floor of the swimming pools. Almost all larger pools have floor returns nowadays. And the interior finish was eroded completely away from the interior finish, from being exposed to bad water chemistry. And what happened was, the health department requires the chemical pumps be interlocked with the circulation pump. What that means is that if the circulation pump turns off, the chemical pumps turn off. In this case, someone that was working on the swimming pool had unplugged the Stenner pumps from the ORP controller, plugged them directly into another outlet. So when the pump turned off, the chemical pumps kept pumping water, or kept pumping chemicals into the pool. Nobody could figure out why they kept running out of chemicals, and it completely ruined the finish. This is one that's going to court, by the way. So next slide, maybe. Look at that.
Okay, John, let me jump in here because we've got a lot of questions and we only have 5 minutes. We're going to do a hard stop at 11:40 to give everyone 5 minutes before the next class. The first question here is, what is the calculation for square foot of water per unit?
I think it's 17 square feet, but I'll have to look. If you want to private message me, I'll look that up for you.
Lindsay, can you put the last slide up so everybody can take a screenshot? I'll also put it in the chat, but want to get through a couple more of these questions. How do you structure your contracts to minimize board liability during the permitting and inspection phases?
So the board shouldn't have any liability associated with our work. As far as the swimming pool, I'm not sure which liability we're talking about, but as far as it turning into a construction site, when I'm under contract to renovate a swimming pool, that area is off limits to everyone except for my people, and the pool's closed. The other way we insulate the board from liability is we carry a couple $1 million worth of liability insurance.
I like it. Okay. How do you coordinate with the landscape and irrigation teams to prevent overspray and chemical interference post install?
Your CPO operator or your pool builder should do that. If your irrigation water sprays on the pool deck and the health department sees it, they're not going to let you open. So that needs to be, that's really an irrigation contractor's issue, but the pool operator or the pool builder, depending on where you are in the process, should be aware of that. As far as overspray on pesticides, it's nothing I can do about that on the swimming pool. They either spray it in my pool or they don't.
Okay. All right. Everyone, we put the information for contacting John directly into the chat, as well as the website to Oakwell's Aquatics, as well as on your screen to take a picture. I'm also putting past courses. This link that I'm putting in here will have this class in it in a couple days. It just takes a couple days to process the video because a few of you asked to get the slides for this, and we appreciate that. We love to be able to offer all of our courses on demand. And so absolutely be looking for those in the next newsletter that goes out, but you can bookmark this website in the chat, and you can absolutely check that out for past courses that John has done on this very topic, but then also in like 2 days, but definitely next week, it will be uploaded. And then it's always on the newsletter that goes out. It says past courses or something of that nature, that you can go in and watch all of these courses on demand. You don't get credit because it has to be a live event, but you can absolutely share the presentation with your board members. John, thank you. You're more than welcome to stay with us as we go over the last minutes here of how to get the credits. If not, though, if you have any final words.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Okay,
Bye.
Lindsay, do you want to go over the code word and the next steps?
Yes. So in your chat, you will see the course title is HOA COA, and the code word to use is OAKS, OAKS. There is a link to the verification page where you'll fill out the form submission to get credit for this course. Again, first, last name, middle initial, only if your license contains your middle name. And then your CAM license number, it will only let you put in the numbers. There will not be, you will not put the CAM in front of it, just the numbers for your license. And again, the code word for this course is OAKS. And for the course title, you'll just put HOA COA. And that way we'll know what course it's for. And we use that information to submit to the DBPR. Give it a couple of weeks to check, but definitely check in a couple of weeks to make sure that you got the credit for these. If there's any issues, please let me know. Generally, when we upload, as long as you've submitted your information, it'll let us know if there's an issue with your individual credit being reported. It sends us back a report. So if there's any issues, I'll reach out to you individually. But so far, so good. This last month and a half of submitting the way we've been doing it now, and it seems to be working well for everyone. The link is in the chat, everybody. We will be back on at 11:45 for Paradigm, so please stay tuned, and we'll give everybody a little 5-minute break to do what you need to do.
Okay, hi, Dawn.